Sounds eerily familiar, doesn't it, to Jack Ruby? Remember how he died?
Oh, yeah, that's...
Oh, so why did I lead this way? Because guess what? I just finished telling the story.
Holy fuck, Steve, pull up the actual documented account of Jack Ruby, how he died.
His name isn't Jack Ruby, just so you know.
Right, I know. It's
Jack Rubenstein,
yes,
and he
exactly.
also is a Mossad agent, just so you know that.
Let's see what the Google machine says about Mr. Rubenstein. Jack Ruby. Type in Jack Ruby. Oh, you can't find his death.
That's not him. He died right around when Garrison was doing
right when
the trial. The trial.
Jolly West. So after Ruby shot Oswald, Jolly West started visiting him in prison, right?
But you know how he got the SV-40 though? It wasn't that way. Let me tell you the story so you get it.
Okay.
Because we probably need to jump into the polio story so you understand this part of it.
Type in, search for cancer.
He gets pneumonia while he's in Dallas. He's writing he's writing the Warren Commission to tell them to get him out of Dallas because he knows Carlos Marcello has got a plan for him. Well, he's going to use the bioweapon that they created on Magazine Street in New Orleans with Oshner through the polio vaccine. This is the part of the story not a lot of people know.
This podcast is fucked. YouTube is not going to let this go anywhere. We're going to have to cut. I mean, we might, I don't know. We're going to have to figure it out, but we got to make sure it's okay.
We'll mute y'all's tracks and put like elevator music over it.
This is either going to be the biggest podcast we've ever done or YouTube's going to delete my channel.
Well, I just got finished telling this whole story in detail at Dealey Plaza to Bobby and to Nicole and to their administrative team. And I have to tell you, the guy that was filming it, his eyeballs nearly melted.
So like water about to melt.
No, it's a good story, but it's the truth. And the way in which you'll find out that I know the truth, that's going to really blow your mind. But the story of Ruby is interesting. He is in Dallas. He's talking to the Warren Commission, says, you got to get me out of Dallas and get me to D.C. because I know they're going to do something to me. He already knows what's going to happen, but he doesn't know how it's going to happen. So he develops pneumonia in Dallas. All this is discoverable by you and your guy back there. So the doctors come in and they give him penicillin flu shots. Turns out in that flu shot was the SV-40. He gets stomach cancer and dies like that. Just like your girlfriend from YouTube. And guess what? Why was that bioweapon created? That bioweapon was created by the industrial military complex and Alton Oshner to get rid of Castro. Okay? And guess who was the front for this whole thing? The mob was involved in this. Most people don't know this, but Carlos Marcello grew up with Lee Harvey Oswald in New Orleans. So he was one of the guys that was working for him, and Oswald was also in the CIA. So if you want to know the part of the story that no one has ever figured out, is why did Oswald was able to go to Russia, come back with carte blanche and never have any problem? Because he needed to be in a communist country so that Castro would allow him to bring this tainted cigar that he was going to smoke, get the SV-40 and die. So that should ask the question in your head, Jack, how'd the industrial military complex, the CIA and the FBI, all know that this thing was going to kill him that fast? Well, I already told you what happened to Susan. Boom. I already told you what happened to Rubenstein. Boom. Now let's get to the real story. So 1951 comes along, and you know the story about FDR. He's got polio. His lawyer starts the March of Dimes. Kids are sending dimes, nickels, and quarters to Jonas Salk. Jonas Salk makes this vaccine. He gives it to the pharmaceutical companies. There's 4 companies that he gives it to, but the one that you need to remember, because your boy's going to be able to pull it up, it's called Cutter Pharmaceuticals. Turns out, Cutter, C-U-T-T-E-R. No doctor ever learns about what I'm about to tell you now. Okay? It's been whitewashed from history. So here's the interesting part. Cutter Pharmaceuticals is in charge of growing this. Remember the date. The date is really important for you to get. 1951. When was DNA discovered, my friend? 1953 by Watson and Crick. So we're in the pre-molecular biology age, okay?
Okay.
Cutter tells, all the 4 pharmaceutical companies tell Salk that his mix is very difficult to grow, this vaccine. So what do? Salk says, I think we need to use a primate that's close to humans, then we'll have a good culture medium. So what do? They use the African green monkey, okay? Turns out there's something they didn't know. Here's the good part of the story, and getting ready to step into crazy town. They're able to grow the vaccine on the African green monkey. They use kidney cells that they grew it on, okay? They create Salk's vaccine, and guess who's the first guy to test it? Dr. Ochsner in New Orleans at the Ochsner Medical Foundation. Things that you need to know about Ochsner. He was a surgeon. He was very famous for being an anti-cancer guy. He used to tell medical students way back when that if this patient has lung cancer, I want you to come and see it because you'll never see another case in your life. That's how rare cancer was in the 1900s to 1920s. That's this guy's reputation. Where you're catching him right now in this part of his life, he's probably in his 60s. He's the dean of Tulane Medical School. He's also the head of surgery after Rudolph Matas, who's a big famous surgeon in New Orleans that people today would know. Something interesting happens right around this time where he loses and gets thrown out. Do you know what it was? 1951, he brings the vaccine into the amphitheater, the surgical amphitheater, calls the entire medical staff of Ochsner. He brings his grandson and grandchild in there, and he injects both of them with the Cutter vaccine. His grandson died in 7 days of polio. His granddaughter gets polio in her leg. She doesn't die. Okay? Everybody who's ever trained in New Orleans knows about this story. Now, younger doctors now, they don't learn about it. I was probably the last group of people, late 80s and early 90s. Do you know why? Ochsner was already dead, but you know who was alive? His son. And guess where I did 2 years of my neurosurgery residency, my friend? Ochsner Medical Foundation.
Wow.
Oh, it gets better. Hold on. So I'm doing my first year of residency, and you know who's filming JFK in the basement of Charity Hospital? Oliver Stone. So it's going down right then and there, and here I am, a dude from New York in the Deep South, seeing all this shitstorm going around me. Do you know who my ER nurse was? Virginia Garrison, Jim Garrison's daughter. This is the DA that put Clay Shaw on trial for the assassination of JFK. And no one ever made the links that I'm about to tell you. So I'm sitting there while this whole thing's going on my first year. And Virginia knows that in 2 months I'm getting ready to go to Ochsner. And she looks at me and she goes, bro, you better be really careful about what you do when you go there. She goes, because this guy's one of the most nefarious people you'll ever meet. And I'm like, well, what are you talking about? And she starts telling me some stories about what her dad really knew, because the guy that he wanted to put on trial was Alton Ochsner. But they put Clay Shaw on trial. You have to realize something. In this day, putting Alton Ochsner in New Orleans on trial would be like putting Fauci on trial in Washington, D.C. right now. You have no chance of telling the story that I'm about to tell you. So remember, Ochsner is the first ever National Cancer Institute doctor. I told you he's the anti-cancer doctor. So after he does this to his grandchildren, he then turns around and tells the industrial military complex, because that's who is developing this, that, look, we need to slow our roll down. We need to get this right. We need to fix the problem. So they casually turn all the science over to a doctor named Dr. Bernice Eddy at the NIH. Dr. Eddy does all this work from 51 through 53, 54. DNA gets discovered. And guess what Dr. Eddy finds out? All the original polio vaccines Salk came up with were all tainted with SV-40, and no one knew it because DNA hadn't been discovered yet. So she tells everybody in the NIH, she tells everybody in the FDA that this has gone on, and what does the industrial military complex do, my friend? They fucking pass the jab out to 300 million people in the world, and they created the whole epidemic of cancer. And guess what? Did the industrial military complex allow Bernice Eddy to tell this story to anybody? No. So guess what Bernice Eddy did? She got canceled before Becker, 25 years before that. What did she do? She gave a talk in, I think it was 1955, at the New York Academy of Sciences. And at the end of the talk, she drops the little nugget that I just dropped to you. That, oh, by the way, all the polio viruses were contaminated with SV-40. And what SV-40 stands for those in your audience who don't know, simian virus 40. So that means there was 39 other viruses that are out there. Okay? What do you need to know, my friend, about SV-40? This is the only thing. Take a look at me. I want you to look at me and not that. This is the most important thing of this story.
I'm looking.
The SV-40 promoter allows things to get across the nuclear membrane to get into where RNA and DNA is and do bad things. Okay? So, what does the government do? After Eddy announces this to the freaking scientific world, they defund her lab. They take her out of the NIH. She's lost to history. Here's the best part. You go look today at the FDA and NIH website, you'll notice from 51 through 57, you don't see anybody's name. When I tell you this is better than 2024 YouTube cancellation, you find no evidence of the Cutter incident. You know why most doctors don't know about it? Because of what I just told you. So here I am training, I don't know, this is like maybe 27, 30 years after this event. And why do I find out about it? Not because I learned about it in medical school, because Virginia Garrison told me what went down. And then what did I do? I went to the medical school library and started pulling stories up. Then I went even further. I went to talk to Alton Ochsner's son, who's a cardiothoracic surgeon who happens to do surgery with us when we used to clip aneurysms. When we used to clip aneurysms, we'd open the head, but we'd have to stop the heart to clip them. That's how long ago I've been a neurosurgeon. We don't do it like that anymore. So in one of those cases, it was a basilar tip aneurysm. J.O.'s opening the chest with one of his other doctors named Keith Van Meter. And J.O.'s sitting there. And I just casually tell my neurosurgery mentor at the time, I said, I'm going to ask him about all this. And he goes, bro, I don't know if you really want to go there. But now, here comes the part of the story that you're really going to shit the bed on. So I said,
shit left.
I said, J.O., I said, is it true what happened with your niece and nephew about, the polio vaccine? He goes, and this is the crazy thing. This guy was a real chatty guy. I thought he would shut me down. Bro, he started talking to me for almost an hour and a half, 2 hours. And once he opened up about that, then I went for the nuclear weapon. And I mean this literally and figuratively. I said, J.O., tell me, why is it that we have a nuclear device in the basement of a community hospital? It's called the LINAC. And who uses that? LINACs are used to treat brain tumors. I said, I know you guys have done really well here. I said, but that's $100 million piece of equipment. And I said, we can barely get new instruments to do spine surgery in this hospital.
What? So for people who are uninitiated,
I'm gonna go there. Okay. Just I'm trying to give you the punch in the mouth so you understand where we're going.